So I released a video yesterday talking about the real cost to actually get every single champion in Raid Shadow Legends. If you're going to start an account today, how much shards and then essentially how much money would it take you? Now, I was joined by Drock in that video. Make sure you check out his channel. It was a really fun conversation. But I did a bit of an oopsie. Now, I'm never always true on every single fact, right? I always say this. I'm not perfect. No human is perfect. And I made a biased assumption based on the long conversation I had with Drock. We recorded this kind of like after a couple of hours of talking about the system. And the assumption that I made was that every champion that you pull would be the one that you want. When in actual reality, as many of you pointed out in the comments, you don't really care about how many, or you don't really care about which champion you get. You actually care more about effectively the champion from 100. So the first champion you ever get will always be unique. It'll always be one. So you start almost like with the 100% probability and you'll work your way down. And it is effectively called the coupon counter problem, right? Which is how do I calculate essentially how many attempts or how many trials before I get all of the items in the reward pot based on the probability. So lots of different ways you can do it. There's a very long math equation. I will be honest, we use so many of this now across all different divisions. I used the power of ChatGPT for this one. It was really helpful to basically make sure my math was actually correct, to go through and double check it and syntax check it. So we got an update today. We got an update. I'm a man of my word. When I'm wrong, I like to call out the fact that I was wrong. But ironically, I wasn't really wrong by much except for the +4. You couldn't really do the multiplication like I did. That was a bit stupid. Hey, we all do silly things. So let's talk about the math here. So these are the numbers at the 99% confidence interval. So what do I mean by that? But essentially you do the calculation and it will give you the average probability and it kind of comes out around about 44%. So it's not really 429,000. You could easily do it with less. For example, I think the number comes out around about for all 215 legendaries, around about 259,000 trials. So basically 259,000 shards to be able to get all of the unique ones. But that's only like 44% probability. So I was like, I want as close to 100% as I can get. Now, what we were doing instead of doing the times 10 math here, I was actually looking at just normal rates. So essentially, if we were to do all this calculation halve, it should effectively theoretically halve, right? Because if you get double the chance, you should be able to halve it kind of concept. That's kind of like the way it's going to work. So what I wanted to do here was to basically work out if I was just pulling shards normally, how many shards would it take on the standard rates? Not accounting for times 10 or times 15 would it take. And the main reason why I did it this way, the chances of you getting the hero that you want that you don't have on a times 15 in the game is almost astronomical. Even if you basically did times 10 every single day for 24 hours, we're still talking with that 215 champions in the game, 215 legendaries, that's 215 days of times 10. So realistically, the trying to do some sort of calculation on the times 15 math is almost like pointless because the probability, it would take you years, right? It would just take you such a long period of time because of the way that they rotate those events. They only happen a couple of days. Not every character gets on. Many of the repeat ones, like I've never seen a times 15 with Norog, for example. So we put that on one side. We removed our actual biases that broke the math the first time and we said, okay, we started with no legendaries in the count. How many would it take? So there are 215 non-voids in the game. That's 429,000 ancient shards to be able to, with 99% confidence, say that you get one of each of those champions, right? One. Now, if you wanted to +4 all of the non-voids, actually, it's surprisingly not as many, right? Because essentially what it's saying is, well, on the path of the probability of the calculation with the way that the equation works, you're probably going to pick up a lot of the excess, right? It's not going to be such a linear approach. It's not going to be like champion 1, champion 2, champion 3. It might go like champion 1, champion 2, champion 1, champion 3, champion 1. So you don't need to do as many trials in order for you to be able to get the +4. So it's a little bit less. Still a bit of a jump, 682,000 to 429,000. Then from the voids, there's about 68 legendary void champions. That's 119,000 trials, right? It's still a 0.5% chance. This is a 429,000 on a 0.5%, but it's a 215 pool. So this represents the difference, right? 215 versus 68. It's again, not linear, right? It's about a quarter. It's about a quarter, but 68 is not a quarter of 215, but it's about about those numbers. Next up, we have Sacred Shards. Now, generally, I assumed and expected that Sacred Shards would be the worst financially because they are the most expensive to buy. They're obscenely overpriced. You would need about 32,729 Sacred Shards to be able to get every single character, and that's about 56,000 to get them all up +4. Now, here's the interesting conversation. I saw a couple of comments about this where they were saying, well, Primal Shards have a 1% chance. There's a better chance to do it. So if you were going to do it, you do it through Primal Shards. And that got me thinking, well, what about the price point? You know, Primal Shards are much more expensive. Is it actually cheaper to do it on Ancients or Primals? Well, if we were to just do Primals, well, obviously we need to get Mythicals. And only Mythicals can drop in Primals. So in order for you to get every single Mythical, it's about 32,108 on a 0.5% rate on Primals. Now, if you wanted to get all of the non-legendaries, the non-voids, or the legendary non-voids, it's 214,000 primals. So you can see it's pretty much half, right? You double in the probability, so therefore you only need half the amount of trials. Now, one thing to note is I did do a calculation in addition to this, which is, okay, well, what if I wanted to do primals plus the voids? Because that's what I really want to know. How do I get all my void legendaries and all my primals? Well, it's not just simply adding these two together. Why? Because of course, when you're doing this exercise, you're going to be able to get some of those champions sooner. Now, here's the fun part. I actually just spotted a slight mistake in the math. And this is what I'm saying. Math is hard, sometimes with these probabilities. So I wanted to work out exactly what the difference was. So I wanted to check if the actual summary added together, and it looks like it absolutely does. So that's cool to know. So basically, if you want to get all the mythicals and all of the non-void legendaries from primals, you just add the two together. Good to know. Always nice to double check these things. And it will need to be around about 246,480 primals or 398,200 if you want to fully empower. So what do all these numbers mean? Basically, I wasn't far off. That's the summary we're going to have here. I really wasn't that far off. This is the math translation. So if you want to get, in the most cheapest form, every single legendary in the game and every single mythical in the game, then you need to go for the primal shards for mythicals, the void shards, and then the ancient shards, and that will add up to about $949,381 pounds. I think I've got this in dollars in the price chart. Yes, I have. This should be dollars. And if you want to get them just from primal shards, it's about 1.6 million. So primal shards, even though they give you double the odds, it's going to cost you twice, well, not twice as much, but a pretty, we're getting close to it, like 70% more. Now, this is based off this price chart. $1 for an ancient, $3 for a void, $5 for a primal, and $20 for sacred. That's pretty average what you would have to purchase, right? Not necessarily what they're worth, but what you would have to pay to be able to get these. Now, if you wanted to fully empower your entire roster, it goes up to 1.5 million. This is where I really got it wrong on the math. I thought, yeah, just multiply it by 4, right? No. Not true, because on the way to getting all of them, you're getting lots of the other ones that you need to get there as well. So it's kind of like the way that the math works is not every single one is going to be a unique role every single time. That's the way we're working with this. So it's $1.5 million and $2.5 million. I mean, yes, to all the people in the chat were basically saying, hey, the math is wrong. It was a little bit wrong because it was based on the bias of the one that I want when it should have been based on I've not got anything. So we've corrected it here. But the actual outcome is still kind of the same. It's about $1 million. That is how much it costs to collect it all. And every single time we add an extra set of champions, like if we would say, let's say, how much would it be if we were to add 10 legendary characters into the pool, right? Let's just say, well, maybe not 10 legendary. They tend to add about 6 legendaries per update. So the change would make it about 441,000. So let's just change that in here, 441,000. So what does that actually mean? So it would be 441,000, give or take. Let's actually use the exact number. Let's be safe about this. It's 441,925. So let's just take these numbers here and let's just work out the difference. And really the difference is 12,925. So basically every single update Raid Shadow Legends does, if they add 6 non-void legendaries, it will increase the cost to complete the roster by about $13,000. So, I like to correct my mistakes if I make them. This was a mistake that I made because I made the assumption that I was only caring about the 1. The math that I did with Drock absolutely still is relevant, right? The math that I did over here in terms of these numbers, these probabilities when you're summoning for 1 shard absolutely still remains the same. The difference here was we were only interested in getting 1 legendary, and that 1 legendary being the one that we wanted, right? So it was basically saying, if I roll legendary on a times 15, what's the probability that I will get the 1 legendary that I want? Doesn't matter how many times I do it or recursive events, just the 1. But if you want to collect the whole roster from absolutely nothing, it is about $1 million. I would say in about 2 updates, if they add 2 more mythicals and about 10 more legendaries, it will be over $1 million. So technically still right. Mathematically, kind of got it wrong. But, you know, this is why math is hard. But there we go, guys. A little bit of an update there on what I did wrong. Hope that was fun. I mean, I will be honest. The numbers, this is math I should never do. I don't know why I did this. It was a really bad idea. But I learned to do math correctly. So there you go, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this. Let me know if I got anything else wrong. Always like to learn. I really do appreciate everyone who highlighted these mistakes. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video.